Is blindness a barrier? No.
Is deafness a barrier? No.
Are mobility, learning, cognitive disabilities, speech impairments and others, or even a combination of them, barriers? No way. Lack of accessibility is.
Welcome to Web Accessibility for All.
Follow the blind. This journey starts now.
Have you ever opened an app and the screen just starts moving on its own? Or an online reader that slowly scrolls the text for you? For some people, that feels smooth. For millions of others, it's a disaster because auto-scroll can make content stressful, confusing, and sometimes impossible to use. Hello my friend, Ariel here, and welcome back to Web Accessibility for All.
But buddy, what actually is auto-scroll?
Auto-scroll is basically when an app moves, updates, or shifts content around automatically without the user controlling it. Sometimes the viewport itself moves. Sometimes new content suddenly appears. Sometimes the layout shifts underneath the user while they are still reading. The most famous version of this is
Infinite scroll.
Think of apps like Instagram or TikTok. You scroll down and the app just automatically loads more posts, moving the page for you. Modern apps do this too. But infinite scroll is only one version of the problem.
Who, infinite scroll and auto scroll, harm most?
If you look up accessibility advice online, you'll usually hear people say,
Infinite scroll is evil. Because if someone using a screen reader hits an endless list, they get trapped in a loop forever and can never leave.
Now that can happen, but there are other groups of users who cannot avoid the trap.
Auto-scroll problems for low-vision users.
These are people who might need to zoom in the screen to read the text. Imagine reading a sentence, and suddenly the code triggers an auto-scroll. The layout shifts, the words slide out of view, and just like that, you are instantly lost on the page. For people using screen magnifiers, this becomes even harder, because only a small portion of the interface may be visible at the time.
Auto-scroll problems for switch and motor disability users.
They may be navigating with a single switch button, zip and puff systems, head tracking, or voice-controlled scanning systems. Every unexpected movement increases the amount of navigation work. If your page automatically scrolls or loads more elements every time they get near the bottom, reading content below becomes exhausting and sometimes practically impossible. But if you think a shift in layout is a problem, wait until you see what happens when the entire app takes over.
How modern apps break accessibility with auto scroll.
Continuous auto-scrolling in reading interfaces.
Some online readers and document platforms include a feature that slowly, continuously scrolls the entire main ARIA. But think about how a screen reader works. The screen reader is following the content line by line. When the interface starts changing or moving things automatically, the screen reader can lose track of where it is, and that can cause repeated announcements, lost reading position, or sudden jumps in context.
Live chat auto-scroll and message snapping.
Think about collaborative chat tools. You open a busy channel. Messages are flying in. You decide to scroll up into the history to read an old message and get on track. But then, a new message arrives at the very bottom of the feed. The interface violently snaps you down.
AI streaming interfaces and screen reader problems.
Think about almost every AI chat app today. When the AI responds, a text streams in word by word, while the chat keeps auto-scrolling down the screen. Now here's the problem. While that response is still generating, the interface keeps changing in real time. So, if a screen reader user tries to read it too early, the constant auto-scroll can trap them in a frustrating audio loop until the AI finally stops typing. Now imagine taking those same patterns and putting them on a mobile touch screen.
Mobile accessibility problems caused by autoscroll.
TalkBack audio overload from autoscroll.
Now, we need to talk about the absolute nightmare that happens on Android when autoscroll collides with TalkBack, Android's built-in screen reader. When TalkBack is running and the layout suddenly shifts or scrolls on its own, it tries to warn the user that the screen is moving, and it does that with rapid audio cues like this. When a web app triggers aggressive auto-scroll, the phone can start ticking, creating this overwhelming wall of audio noise.
Proof of concept. Here the auto-scrolling areas. Heading. A proof of concept for demo purposes only. Please do not. Docs. Settings. Help. Learn more about this purple button. Button. Double tap. Featured content. Card 4. Card 3. Card 4. Card 3. Help. Help. Help.
But the audio chaos is only half the problem.
How autoscroll breaks touch navigation on Android.
TalkBack keeps trying to keep up with the moving screen, constantly tracking elements as they shift around. And that's when everything falls apart. The user gestures get hijacked. Focus keeps jumping around. The screen keeps ticking, and touch controls stop responding properly. The user is basically trapped.
Vestibular disorders and motion sensitivity.
For some users, autoscroll is not simply distracting. It can trigger real physical symptoms. People with vestibular disorders may experience dizziness, nausea, migraines, eye strain, or even spatial disorientation when large areas of the screen move unexpectedly. And because autoscroll often removes the ability to predict motion, the experience can quickly become exhausting.
So Ariel, how do we stop this? Yeah, how do we build modern dynamic apps without making them a nightmare to use?
WCAG and ARIA rules for auto-scrolling interfaces.
WCAG 2.2.2, pause, stop, hide, explained.
The rule is pretty clear. If something on the page moves, flashes, or scrolls on its own, starts automatically, and keeps going for more than 5 seconds, users must have a way to pause it, stop it, or hide it. It doesn't matter what the element is. If it moves by itself, it needs a kill switch. Most uncontrolled automatic movement should immediately raise a big red flag.
Using ARIA role feed for dynamic content.
When you use this role, you are signaling to assistive technologies that this container is a dynamic, scrolling stream of information. Keyboard navigation within that feed must remain entirely predictable, so users can read at their own pace, without unexpected movements.
ARIA patterns for AI chats and streaming interfaces.
When developers build streaming interfaces, like AI chats or live feeds, the goal should not be
announce everything immediately.
The goal is controlled, stable communication.
ARIA Live, polite.
This gives assistive technologies a safer moment to announce updates without aggressively interrupting the user.
ARIA Relevant additions.
This helps reduce repeated announcements by limiting them to really new content being added to the container.
ARIA Busy, true.
This tells assistive technologies that their region is still updating, so some of them can wait until things stabilize before announcing changes.
How to build accessible auto-scroll interfaces.
If you are building a feed, avoid endless auto-scroll altogether. Use a proper
load more
pattern. If new content appears dynamically, consider adding a separate
jump to latest
button functionality. If your app has a continuous reading stream, make sure there's a visible, sticky
pause/play
button.
Using prefers reduced motion to reduce motion problems.
Users with severe vestibular disorders lock their operating system to avoid animations. For many people, this is not just a visual preference, it is a physical safety setting. Use media queries to instantly kill smooth scroll jacking.
Accessibility checklist for infinite scroll and auto scroll.
Do I have a kill switch?
If something scrolls or moves on its own for more than 5 seconds, is there a clear keyboard accessible pause button? Or a manual load more option?
Does my code check the scroll geometry?
If a user scrolls up to reveal older content, does the app pause auto-scroll immediately?
Are we listening to the operating system?
If a user prefers reduce motion enabled, does your app immediately disable auto-scroll?
Can users recover their position?
If the interface updates dynamically, can users safely return to where they were reading without losing their place or focus?
Wrapping up.
Predictable interfaces are not boring. They are respectful. Because good accessibility isn't about making apps feel less modern. It's about making sure people can actually use them comfortably, confidently, and without fighting the UI every few seconds. At the end of the day, you are not just shipping features. You are shipping an experience that respects your users' time, attention, hard work, and honestly, their sanity. Thank you so much for tuning in to Web Accessibility for All. If you found this episode helpful, drop a review. And let's continue breaking down barriers together. Goodbye.
Thanks for joining us today. Subscribe for a new challenge next week. And don't be shy. Leave us a review or ask your accessibility questions online. See you next week for another episode of Web Accessibility for All.